Welcome to the 2025 AMP Livestock Expo informational presentation. Over the next several minutes, we will spend some time giving you some information specifically about this opportunity for students to raise livestock as a student within the AgriScience Magnet program. Now, let me go ahead and just make this point right up front as we begin the presentation that the raising of livestock is a voluntary experience. There is nothing mandatory about students having to actually raise and exhibit a livestock animal. We have many students that think animals are cool, but yet they don't have any interest in raising those. But what we do want to do, what we do want to provide is an opportunity for those students that do have a desire to learn about production agriculture, that specifically being the raising of livestock, to provide that experience for them through the AgriScience Magnet program so they can get the hands-on learning of what that entails, as well as understanding the foundational and fundamental elements to raising an animal. And so therefore we have the AMP Livestock Expo. So what this presentation will do is it's going to provide you all the essential details to ensure that you have a successful journey through this experience. Now, within the AgriScience Magnet program, we have two levels of the feeding program experience. And so this slide here will delineate those two. But as I've already mentioned through the introduction of this presentation, the AMP Livestock Expo is for primarily those first-year students with us that have never had any experience, if any at all, of raising a livestock project and exhibiting it. So primarily we'll call these the novice feeders, those that have never had this experience before. This is what this is designed for. It's designed for that student. And the destination of the place where we're going to be exhibiting this animal will be at the AMP Livestock Expo, which this year is going to be held on October the 10th, 2025. So students will be raising this livestock animal to exhibit it at this expo. Now, one of the things that we like about that we highly encourage my students when we want to go through this is it's designed to introduce our novice participants to the world of livestock projects in a very structured and supportive environment. And one of the things about being so structured is that we also can control the cost of it. So first year participants are able to learn these fundamentals while managing their projects, and will be using what we would call maybe more commercial feed and animals to do this. And at the whole time, our whole goal is to prepare them for a future over the next several years as a student in the AgriScience Magnet program to compete at a much more broader level or a bigger field of competition. And so as the AMP Livestock Expo highlights there, again, this is primarily for first-year feeders that have never had this experience before. Again, they're going to be exhibiting the animal at the AMP Livestock Expo on October the 10th. And this is a proving ground. And the reason it's a proving ground is because through this experience, it allows students access to that next level that we can provide students through our program. And that's the level of competing at major shows. For this level, students will have qualified for it. They're now what we would consider to be a proficient feeder. They understand the fundamentals. They understand all of the foundational concepts of feeding a livestock animal. And their purpose in this would be to exhibit an animal at our very own Northeast Ag Fair or the Bexar County Junior Livestock Show and Rodeo, or at state shows like the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo that happens every February, or maybe at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and various others throughout the state. Now, a key difference in this program of feeding compared to the AMP Livestock Expo is that it does require a significantly more of an investment of both the students and families' time and finances in order to raise an animal and compete at the major show level. So let me talk a little more now and specifically about what the expectations and goals, or we can call it the purpose of the AMP Livestock Expo. You know, it goes much more than just beyond raising an animal. Now, that's the fun part that students get out of it, but really it's going to provide a hands-on experience under close supervision, supervision by our AMP faculty that will be assisting students in learning how to apply the knowledge and skills of raising a livestock animal. And many of these knowledge and skills they're going to be learning in the classroom. So this will be essentially like a laboratory where they can apply those skills that they're learning. You know, our goal is to develop a student that is also very literate in understanding how products are produced in agriculture and how that affects us as an end consumer. So again, we would like to develop the student to become much more literate in agriculture producer and be a more literate consumer on their end as well. Something else that we want to do is to instill the spirit and the skills of entrepreneurialism. And so as you see there, we engage students in production agriculture. They'll actually own these projects and be financially responsible for them. And so that is one of the concepts of entrepreneurship. And then, of course, we want to develop them and create confidence in them and create competence as well, so that they can move to that next level, which we call varsity level within our program. But that's that major show level where if they would like to compete against students across from the entire state of Texas, then they have proven themselves to get to that level and do that. And then lastly, we want to one of the goals for this Livestock Expo experience is to provide an entry-level experience with a more reasonable amount of finances needed to do it. So we make it more cost effective for the students and for the family. Now, what are the different types of livestock projects that students can raise through this experience? And this slide here just gives you an example of some of the different projects that our students can choose to raise. Things from rabbits to goats to sheep to pigs. So specifically, let's talk about the timeline or the duration that the student would be responsible for raising and caring and then exhibiting those animals. As you can see from this slide, market lambs, market swine, and market goats all have essentially the same commitment level or duration for raising that animal. Approximately 4 months from the middle of June all the way until October the 10th, when the AMP Livestock Expo happens. Market rabbits are a little bit different. They're going to have a shorter duration on feed, and that's primarily because they grow at a much more rapid pace. And so to fit what we need for industry purposes, we don't need to feed them that many months to get to that point. And so as you can see, we can approximately a month and a half or 45 days that students would be responsible for raising a rabbit for exhibition. And so that would take it approximately from late August all the way to October the 10th. So as you look at this slide, that kind of gives you some background about how long your time commitment as a student would be for raising these projects and for being engaged in it from that standpoint. Now, since we're talking about timelines and durations of the projects and so forth, let's go ahead and tackle this right away so that you can get this on your calendar, these dates. The one that's first one that's of utmost importance is our actual breakout sessions for the AMP Livestock Expo that are going to explain these different species and give you more of the in-depth information that you're going to need to make a better decision. Well, those are going to take place on April the 15th here in the AMP complex, and we're going to have meeting times from 7:00 p.m. to 7:55. And that's going to be designed for students and families to choose at least 2 species to go learn more about that evening so that you can make, again, an educated decision on which one fits your family's budget and time commitments. Okay, so make sure you mark that April the 15th here at the AMP complex, 7:00 p.m. We will have those species-specific breakout sessions. The next date that is going to be very critical is the deadline of May the 1st. And that deadline is when students need to make a minimum $50 deposit. That deposit can only be in cash or check, as well as submit the completed documents due to us by 4:30 on May the 1st. And that's how students then show us their intent to raise a specific livestock animal. Of course, in all that we do, it's first come, first serve. So you can start leaving payments as early as that April 15th meeting if you already have some decisions that you made after seeing this presentation. But May the 1st, if a deposit and those documents aren't received by that date, then you will have missed this opportunity for this school year coming up. Then final payments, the remaining balances of each of those beyond the $50 minimum deposit are due on May the 23rd in our office. The next you'll see there are these livestock boot camps, and these are mandatory. If you're going to raise a livestock animal through this experience, you have to be in attendance and must go to these boot camps. So if you have any conflicts over the summer with any of the dates here, for instance, the week of June the 9th, we'll have our livestock boot camps for those that are raising sheep and swine. The week of June the 16th, livestock boot camp for those that are raising goats. And then we'll have specific dates for you later, but late August of this 2025 is when the livestock boot camp for rabbits will happen. So you have to have a clear calendar in order to meet these boot camps. You need to be in attendance in order to do this experience. That's a non-negotiable. Okay. And then we have two more dates that round out the important dates to make sure you get on your calendar. September the 19th is the entry deadline for our students to enter their livestock animals for the AMP Livestock Expo. More on that to come as we get closer to that September 19th date. And then, of course, the big day, which we're going to be exhibiting the animals in front of all of the community and family and friends, that's going to take place on October the 10th, 2025. All right, now that we've got those important dates calendared, and hopefully those are all things that you can make work into your schedule for this coming year, then do want to give you a little bit of where do you go to get more of this information and what kind of things do you need to turn back in. So I mentioned there that on May the 1st, the $50 deposit has to be done by May the 1st. And along with that $50 deposit are two required documents that must be turned in with that. One of those being the AMP Livestock Feeders Contract. And so as you can see on this slide here, I have the section circled where you can find these contracts and then starred by those required ones. So the AMP Livestock Feeders Contract, as well as the AMP Livestock Expo Commitment Form. And this is what those two forms are going to look like. And again, they're posted there on this SMORE site for you to access those. So you'll need to download those, print them, fill them out, and submit them along with that $50 deposit. And remember, we can only take cash or check for any of those payments by May the 1st. So with those kind of things out of the way, now we know about what the purpose of the AMP Livestock Expo is, being a proving ground for first-year feeders to get that experience at a much more affordable or cost-efficient price there for you, as well as we've talked about what the important dates are to remember, the things that you have to make sure you have a cleared calendar so that you can commit to this. And now we're going to talk about what are some of the costs that you can expect with these different species. So again, we have the 4 different species: goats, lambs, pigs, and rabbits. And with each species, there's going to be a little bit different cost, which allows it to fit different budgets based on what families have available to get this experience with. And so here, let's look at just the upfront costs, the things that we're going to need a $50 deposit for and a final balance paid off by May the 23rd. So with goats, you'll see there we have a facility use fee. So that's essentially the fee for paying rent, so to speak, for a stall or a stable within our barns for your animal. And each of those animals has a little bit of a variation based on what needs we need to provide for that animal while it's housed here. But for a goat, it's $100 facility use. For a lamb, it's $120 facility use. A pig is $320, and your rabbit is $100. Please note, in each of those facility use fee, there is a $20 FFA activity fee already built in. It's mandatory to pay your FFA activity fees to be a part of this. So that's already built in to that facility use fee. Now, what will the animal cost me to actually we either lease the animals or we purchase the animals outright? And so what does that cost look like? So the student will actually own or lease the animal during this experience. And for the goat, that is a lease option in which we will pay a breeder $200 for that lease option. So the student will be responsible to pay that. Lamb, we're purchasing the lamb. And so the $300 to purchase the lamb. The pig, we're purchasing the pig. So that student will own that animal. And that has a $250 animal cost. And then the rabbits also are purchasing, but there will be the opportunity to sell back to the livestock breeder for the rabbits at the end of the project. And so you're looking at a total upfront cost. Remember, a $50 deposit by May the 1st, and then the remaining balance would be paid off by May the 23rd. So your total upfront cost for a goat would be $300. a lamb $420, a pig $570, and for your rabbits would be $250. So hopefully this information gives you some more insight into maybe which project might fit your family and the student for their experience in their first year better based on those upfront costs. Now, there are also costs beyond this upfront cost, the cost that you need to pay to the Agri-Science Magnet Program to be a part of it. And those are going to be things like the feed and supplies that will need to be purchased throughout the project to be successful with it. And so again, on this slide, you see those upfront costs, which we just carried over from the previous slide. And so the upfront cost again is going to include the facility use, the FFA activity feed, as well as what your cost is to either purchase or lease that animal. And then you'll see the next column there is what we just estimate you could expect to be spending in feed as well as buying supplies for your livestock project. And so goats there are about $400 you can expect. And again, this price can fluctuate. It could be more, it could be less, but a great starting point of how much do we need to budget if you're asking that question. Lambs is a little more detailed in what it takes for feed and supplies, $580. And pigs eat a lot, and they go through a lot of feed, so they do have a higher feed cost, as you can see there. Now, interesting to note on the rabbits, there are no additional feed or supplies needed. In that $250 for the purchase of the rabbits, as well as the facility fee, we do a community feed type where the supervisor of that barn will order in feed in bulk, and everybody will feed the same from the same source there. And so it's going to be that will be purchased through your facility use fee that you pay. Okay, and then just remember, we will get more specifics about these costs and be able to give you more details at our breakout sessions that we have for each of the species coming up in 2 weeks on April the 15th. Now, what can students estimate to get a income or return for this project? So here are just some things that we have built in for the experience in hopes to, break even on the project or at least get some financial return out of it so that students can then reinvest that, we hope, into another project for the livestock project for their next school year. So any of the livestock that we purchase, be it the sheep or the pigs and so forth, after the show, they will be sold and the student will receive a resale check. We'll sell the animals at a public livestock market where they'll be purchased by another individual that will take them and continue on their purpose in regards to, supplying food for us here in the United States. And so it says their purchased livestock will receive a terminal resale check for the market price of their animal at the completion of the project period. If it's a leased animal, like for instance in the goats, then we will return those animals to the breeder, in which the breeder will put them back into production agriculture and continue to use their genetics. Students will also have the opportunity to receive a premium check from the James Madison FFA Booster Club at the 2026 AMP Awards Gala. And so our Booster Club will raise money and award students a certain dollar amount based on the points that they earn through this proving ground experience. As well as it's just important that any of our fundraising efforts that we do them very well, because the more funds we raise, that means the more monies that go in the students' pockets based on the points that they earn. And so, as I said there again, the goal should be to break even in this project to get as much money back from it, not necessarily to make a profit, but that allows you to get this experience and then reinvest that money the next year if you so wish. So the more money we as a booster club, as a Agri-Science Magnet program raise, then the more money that we can give to students to help them with that. All right. Now I've said it several times that this is a proving ground experience. So this is a entry-level experience for students to come in, get the exposure to raising a livestock animal and being able to exhibit it, and start gaining that knowledge firsthand. But again, it is a proving ground. Students must come through this experience and earn a certain number of points in order to progress to compete at the much larger level, which we call the major show level. So we use a point system to do that. And so on the SMORE newsletter site that you're on, you'll also be able to find our AMP Livestock Expo point systems handout there, which will explain to you all the different categories. It's essentially a rubric that students can earn uh, their points on so that they can prove that they are ready to move on to the next level. Interesting thing in this is that all of the points um, are all about what the student does, not what the animal does. So we've removed the animal from the equation, and it's all on that student experience and how well they do. So exhibitors will be evaluated by this point system. So it's, again, we encourage you to download this document, read it, become familiar with it. The points then determine their eligibility to exhibit livestock. To exhibit livestock again, maybe at the AMP Livestock Expo level, maybe move on to the major show level or go to our Northeast Ag Fair or the Bexar County Junior Livestock Show. And then the points also determine the premium money that the student will receive from the booster club. So let's talk about the qualification levels within that point system. So as you read the document, you're going to find these key things to be true. First is a student must earn a minimum of 50 points from the point system rubric in order to qualify for any potential monies that the James Madison FFA Booster Club might award. So they have to have a minimum of 50 points in order to receive a donation check from the James Madison FFA Booster Club. A student must also earn a minimum of 50 points from the point system rubric to be eligible to participate in the livestock project experience at the next year's AMP Livestock Expo. So if a student does not meet the 50 points, they will not receive any monies from the Booster Club, and they will not be able to participate in the AMP Livestock Expo the following school year. Next, if a student earns less than 50 points, what I just spoke to, they'll not be eligible to participate in the AMP Livestock Expo the next year. They will have to sit out. And students must earn a minimum of 70 points from the point system rubric in order to be considered for the major show level the next school year. So I come through the AMP Livestock Expo Experience, I raise a livestock animal, I score 70 points. That would make me eligible then to raise a livestock animal in the following year for the major livestock shows. So that, again, that would be our Northeast Ag Fair, the Bexar County Junior Livestock Show and Rodeo, San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, or the Houston Stock Show and Rodeo, to name a few. All right, so a student must earn a minimum of 70 points from the point system rubric in order to be considered for the major show level, and the following components will also be used to determine if they're eligible to participate at the major show level. And those elements are the student and parent or guardian must interview with the project supervisor of the species they have an interest in, and the student must receive a positive recommendation from the project supervisor that supervised the student for the AMP Livestock Expo. All right, as we move into this portion of the presentation, we're just going to talk about the roles of the teacher, the student, and the parents. And so this is real key and critical so that you'll understand what am I saying yes to and what expectations would be upon myself as a parent, as well as I'm a student in this situation. What am I expected to do? And so as you see here, the role of the teacher is going to play a very crucial and key role here because they're going to be the ones providing the livestock education about the livestock animal that they're raising. They're going to be providing that outside the school day. So it'll be getting into the barn and actually teaching students based on the species that they're in. You're going to be teaching a lot about principles of livestock production. So they're going to be learning about these principles and then how that relates to showing their livestock project. The teacher will also be guiding both the students and families through all of the policies and practices that we have so that they raise livestock through our program in a very humane and proper manner. And then they will also be responsible for training the student to be a major show livestock feeder. Remember, that's our ultimate goal for those students that want to feed and have this experience is to do that so they can reach that next level of competition, which would be at that varsity or major show level. The teacher's also responsible for managing the health of the barn and the preventative care and maintenance that goes on in the barn to keep our animals healthy. And so that's one of the major roles of the teacher. And then the teacher will also be conducting educational meetings throughout this feeding experience, as well as clinics and workshops to give students not only the facts and the knowledge, but the know-how through hands-on training that goes on through the clinics and workshops. And then, of course, we would expect, and you would want to expect, that the role of the teacher is to provide that communication of how well the student is progressing or where the areas of needs or improvement need to happen. And so that would be the role of the teacher. For our student, they play a very critical role. Remember, we're doing all of this because it is for the student. And so students, one of your roles is that you will have to care for your livestock animal project twice daily, every day from the start to the finish of the project. So if I'm raising a pig and it comes the second week of June and I'm starting to take ownership of that pig, then every day from the start of that project all the way until when it ends, when we exhibit it on October the 10th at the AMP Livestock Expo, uh, I am the one then as that student responsible for the care and feeding of that animal twice a day. Students also responsible for all the costs that are associated with the animal. Students also should be the one taking the initiative to communicate with their teacher, the one that's supervising them with this project, keeping them informed about any of the changes that you might be doing or the feeding protocols and plans that you're on. So this is all where you want to work with the teacher as a coach. Students must attend the species boot camps. So we'll have showed those dates earlier, but if you're interested in a lamb or a pig, then that will be the week of June the 9th. If you're interested in a goat, that would be the week of June the 16th. And then rabbits, the boot camp will happen in the latter part of August once we have school started. Students should also make sure that their calendar is clear and they will attend the AMP Livestock Expo on October 10th and exhibit their animal. They also need to make sure they're attending all meetings, clinics, and workshops that are scheduled by the barn supervisor for the animal project that they're raising. And of course, we want students to think of the facilities that they're working in as a place of business. So they need to make sure that they're maintaining proper conduct in the barns. It's not a playground. It's not a place for students to, um, just act disrespectfully and so forth. There's a purpose for being there, and it's to care for your animals. Students will also be expected to maintain their proper records of their experience, as well as perform barn chores because we are living in a community and all students will have specific chores that they'll be doing on a rotational basis. So that's what they'll be doing. Now, what's the role of you as the parent? Well, as the parent, we just ask that you stay in contact with the advisor or the teacher that species that your student's in and monitor the progress of the student. How are they doing? How are they doing? Are there deficiencies? Are there some things that they're doing really well at? Do they need to spend more time, less time? All great conversations to have with the teacher that will be supervising that project program. Make sure you're assisting your student with the project. Another great thing about this versus other things that you can involve yourself in high school is that you as a parent don't have to sit in the stands and watch from afar. You can actually participate and engage in the raising of a livestock animal right alongside your student. As they're up here feeding 2 times a day, or taking time on the weekend to groom or practice showmanship and so forth, you as a parent can also get that experience alongside them. We encourage parents to participate on our AMP Livestock Expo fundraising committee because that, correlates right along with the more monies that we raise, the more money that goes to your students as to help offset costs that they would have incurred as they got started with the project program. Also, would be an expectation of parents to attend James Madison FFA Booster Club as well as the barn meetings. Okay. Those are all communicated out and put on the calendar at the beginning of the school year so that you can follow along and make sure you're making those different meetings and giving input there. And then, of course, the parent, one other expectation is to communicate with the teacher, reach out, communicate, ask questions. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, seek clarification and so forth. And so that would be upon the role of the parent. Okay, so we've talked about several things now. Again, what is the purpose of the AMP Livestock Expo? What are the different levels of raising livestock within the AgriScience Magnet Program? What species are available through this experience? When would they start? When would they end? What do I need in order to secure a spot, which is get that deposit turned in? What forms do I need? So that's all been covered. So at this point, we're just going to start wrapping this up, do a brief summary again of what that looks like. So highly encourage you, if you are interested in raising a livestock animal for next school year, and this is your first year experience and you've never raised a livestock animal, then make sure you attend the species breakout sessions on April the 15th. You'll have two species sessions that you can choose from during that hour that we'll be together. And so I ask that now you start doing your homework and start asking or writing down the questions that you want to ask, that you can get more clarity on the night of the breakout sessions. You need to read the AMP Complex Rules and Livestock Feeding Guidelines on our SMORE website, as well as you're going to need to read, sign, and return the 2025-26 Livestock Feeders Contract. You'll read the AMP Livestock Expo point system. Make sure you complete the AMP Livestock Expo commitment form, and that needs to come back by May the 1st with a $50 deposit. That's either cash or check. And then the final payment so that you can get all your upfront costs paid to us, that is going to be May the 23rd. All right, that wraps up this informational presentation. So I am interested. I really want to know more about this opportunity. What is next? What's next is our species breakout sessions on Tuesday, April the 15th from 7 o'clock to 7:55 p.m. here in the AMP complex. And from there, we will get you the most up-to-date and detailed information for you to make a decision. And then we will be ready that night on April the 15th to start accepting deposits, the $50 deposit, cash or check only. And we'll be accepting those deposits through May the 1st as space is provided in each of the barns. Again, hope this was helpful. We look forward to seeing you on April the 15th. Goodbye for now.